Hey, welcome back to the channel. So it's Apocalypse Day. It's the beginning of the apocalyptic weekend, right? The crystals are out, the arenas are on. Some of you are considering grinding out this champion, which means a lot of hours, a lot of units, or even opening crystals, which means incredible luck or a lot of units or both. And so I wanted to get this out there. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I like to do an initial review and I like to very thoroughly test before I give out a final opinion. And even then, I like to leave it open to let's give some time. Let's take this champion to war. Do they have a use in AQ? And there's been so many videos that have come out on him, and the hype is incredible. And I'm just going to tell you, it made me want to be critical of him. I wanted to find flaws. I wanted people who saw this video to really go into this hunt and grinding or crystal opening, eyes wide open on what they're getting. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at two fights against Cavalier difficulty opponents, the new monthly quest here. And then I'm gonna show you the fight that made me decide, no, this guy's pretty awesome. You gotta have him surrounded right. But when you do, he's awesome. And so I'll talk him through on a more broad level what's going on as we watch these fights, and hopefully give you a realistic idea of what to expect if you get him and you just start questing with them right away. So doing these two Cavalier fights, all of these fights are done with a rank 3 Sig 200 Apocalypse. I don't think the signature ability is really that important, or it's not necessary, let's say. I do think it's really nice, and I think it fits in well with the way this character is made. He really reminds me of what we saw in the movies. He's fine on his own, but when he gets his mutants teammates, when he gets his horsemen around him, he becomes significantly better, and he can give them powers that make them incredible. We're taking this fight against Kamala Khan, and then we're going to go up against the Nebula because they're poison immune. The main way that Apocalypse does his damage is by putting these debuffs. You see all four of them up there on her, or there's three of them. Ideally, you'd want all four, right? She's poison immune, so there's no poison. And then his damage comes from throwing those specials, and the damage on the specials is enhanced by how many debuffs are on the opponent. So that's a rank 3 Apocalypse in 100 hits, killing a Cavalier quality opponent. That wasn't an ideal matchup for him. It wasn't impossible. What else wasn't ideal? And we're going to see something very similar here against this Nebula. I think if there was anything I wanted to say to make sure you understand this before you go for this champion, you have an idea of how good they are, is you're going to want his travel companions. On his own, he is significantly weakened. He has something called these genetic enhancements, and he can go anywhere from 1 to 4 of them, and they're persistent charges. There's persistent genetic code. At 1, he's a very weakened version of what you're seeing here. And you have to build him up, and you build him up by winning these fights. Or you can take along his, I think, most important synergy, and that allows him to start the quest with these 4 genetic enhancements, increasing his damage by a lot. That synergy is with Kang, who not many people have. Mr. Sinister, who a decent amount of you might have, and he's a pretty good champion. We've talked about him. He can, with the right synergies, do some pretty incredible things. And then Cable, who I really like, and Cable becomes awesome with Apocalypse. I think that's his most important synergy. Then I think it's Xavier, Professor X, but I think it's Cable. And the reason is because that allows him to start with his 4 genetic charges. And Cable becomes awesome. If you're like, what the heck are you talking about? I'm going to link a video of me taking my rank 1 Sig, I think 100 Cable, through the first 3 fights of Labyrinth of Legends, and I think you're going to be really surprised at the damage he can do and how quickly he gets those fights over with. So that's the thing with Apocalypse. I hate to describe him as being high maintenance, but he kind of is. His damage is also increased by the amount of mutants he has on the team. He really needs them around them as much as they need him around them. The good thing is, and this is what I think the saving grace for this champion is that he makes those mutants so incredible. And they're already good to begin with. the Magnetos, Wolverine, Archangel, Storm Pyramid X. These are mutants that you were already going to be bringing along with you. So I think it's his saving grace, but it's also what makes him strong. Like I said, I think they did a great job of really taking the character from the movies and putting him into this game. Now, he comes with incredible utility, right? We see the degeneration, we see the concussion, we see the weakness. And then, of course, because they're poison immune, we're not seeing the poison. He also, all of his hits do energy damage, so that's going to help you with some of the nodes or champions that provide a damage back upon hit. He can run suicides very well, those immunities to bleed and incinerate. It's kind of an awkward immunity. It's not really an immunity. It's one that kind of comes up as those get labeled on him or get put on him. You see he's now completely bleed immune. So unless you're facing a node or a champion that puts an immense, very strong amount of damage into those debuffs, he's going to develop that immunity and save you. And I think that's where the SIG ability is helpful. You get him in for a fight or two, he takes that damage, develops those immunities, maybe even that counter to evade. He heals up, you bring him back in. And then he can make a horseman because he uses those genetic charges to make the horseman. And then that horseman just dominates the boss or the final 3 fights or whatever for you. Now here's the fight that made me just decide, nope, this dude's awesome. I'm going to do a small hunt for him. I've got, I think, a fantastic roster to enhance him and to be enhanced by him. We also just saw, I think, one of the other really nice pieces of utility, and I think it's one of those ones that's well designed as far as enhancing the champion. On his second hit into the block, that first light, he will stun the champion. We'll probably see it again, and if not, we'll see it on the last fight I'm going to show you. And what that does is it can allow you to work around nodes like Bane, where you absolutely have to land a hit, but it also allows you to ensure that you're refreshing his debuffs, which you do by landing your heavy. See, right here, you see the debuffs get refreshed. So you can go in, and if you really, they last a long time, but if you find them starting to fall off, you can go in, you can hit the block, you hit it the second time, which will be with your first light, and then you have plenty of time to land your heavy. Additionally, the thing that I really loved about this fight, and this fight just really captured me, I think because it's an R3, it's Act 6.4.1, this is big, beefy defenders, and yes, Apocalypse has built up as much as he possibly can. We've built up Professor X, so we've got the special damage going. But watch this. This is a rank 3. We're about 46 into the fight. We're about to get up to our special 2 with 4 debuffs on. He's at 36% of his health. This is Act 6.4.1, and he's at 36% of his health. And watch the damage from the special 2. It's misleading because it's a lot of hits. It's a lot of hits, and these numbers aren't huge. This isn't Ghost or Sunspot. But you add them up, and you add in all of the utility, and then you add in all the things he does for his team. I'm impressed. I am very, very impressed. I would like to maybe try to see taking him to war, where you could only have 2 other spots with you. I'm not sure how well he'll hold up there. There's clearly lanes in AQ he can take. Now, I wanted to also, I did the lane anyways, so I wanted to take him up against this Thor, where ideally you're taking in a power control champion. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not going to be a solo. But it's going to be due to me making a mistake. It's going to be due to a gameplay, and it's not Apocalypse. He actually has the ability to do the damage that's necessary and work around a fight that he really probably shouldn't be taking. Even on this team, he's not the champion I would have chosen, but I wanted to see what he would be like in a complicated fight with a lot of things going on. And would it be tough to refresh his debuffs? That was the main thing I wanted to test here, because we're dealing with Thor's specials costing less. We're dealing with, as soon as he throws a special, if he hits me, it's an insta-death. And we're dealing, of course, with his power gain. There's a lot to manage here. And like I said, ideally you're taking in a power control champion. And am I going to be able to refresh the debuffs? As you can see, they're about halfway through. I really don't want them to fall off. If they fall off, I have to start all over. but we're able to land the heavy and keep that down while keeping an eye on those charges of Thor. The one thing that made this even more challenging was the length of Apocalypse's specials, right? Ideally, I probably would have thrown them a little earlier there in Thor's power gain charges, because they don't get canceled out. The power gain isn't canceled out until my special finishes, so the length of them is really quite a negative. But so as you see here, the debuffs are starting to kind of wind down. I'm getting a little worried because I'm going to need to refresh them. And then we're going to go in and hit his block twice. And that's what I'm talking about. That is a really great ability of his that fits in well with his kit, right? I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I feel like there's champions that have this awkward ability and it just doesn't fit in with the kit. Or it's like, if we could extend their debuffs this much longer, they'd be pretty great. It's kind of like Iron Man Infinity War. But in this case, they've actually given the champion, you don't need a synergy for it, they've given the champion a nice and simple way to go in, get that stun, and refresh those debuffs so you don't lose them. Now, I've lost them just because this fight was really complicated. And like I said, I made some mistakes in it. But again, keep in mind, this is a rank 3 champion. So we're getting near the end here. And if you've made it this far, that's great. And the things I just want to make clear is, I think this champion's very good. I think you need to keep in mind, you need those champions with him. At least I think you do. I don't think you're going to open the box on this champion, take him into a quest on his own with your mystics and your techs, and he's going to carry you through it. I just don't think that's going to happen. It didn't happen in my experience. But if you pair him up with the right champions who are also good or great, you can build your team around him, and you can take an R3 and defeat bosses in Act 6. Good luck hunting out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you either learned something, were entertained, or even better, a little bit of both. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on Twitter at VegaGaming583. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.